Hey guys, David from Dash Off Road here once again. It's Tuesday night and it's a bit of a Merry Christmas to you. So say hi to Santa. Hey Santa. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about dual batteries tonight. So not dual as in like we're going to have a punch up. That's D-U-A-L, dual batteries. So why do we need a dual battery? Well, I'm sure you guys know this, that's why you're here. But you know, if we're going to go away camping on the weekend, whether it's for 2 nights for the weekend or a whole week, we're going to need some extra power to keep our beer cold, keep our food cold, and have lighting, all that sort of stuff. So tonight we're going to go into the batteries, so the different types of batteries that you can get, how to charge them, where to put them, and whatever else I can think of. And what size you need as well. So I'm going to try and cover off on as much as possible about all those sorts of things, and we'll get into it. But just before we start, I'm going to introduce someone who isn't here next to me, but he's in the chat tonight. So this is Al from Homer 12 Volt. You can say hi, Al, in the chat or the comments down below there. So I've realised with some of these live streams that I don't get to all the comments because they pop up on my screen. I can't read them quick enough and I miss it, and then I don't get to answer them. So who better to have someone answer questions about batteries than the guy that owns a shop called Homer 12 Volt. So he's there. You might have seen Homer 12 Volt on the modified action, Y62 modified action page. If you're not a member of that, get on it. Homer 12 Volt's got some specials on there. I'm not going to tell you what they are. That's not what this is about. But if you're interested, get on there and you can find out what deals that are up there. Hey, yeah, good to see. All right, so let's get into it. I said I was going to talk about the different types of batteries and chemistries. Look, there is heaps out there. AGM, gel cells, you would have heard of deep cycle, wherever that fits in. Lithium, lead acid. There's heaps of videos on it, so I'm just going to talk about 2 pretty much. It's AGM and lithium, because I think that's the 2 main things that are you know, happening right now as far as batteries and technology goes. Like, just have a look at everything in your house now that you buy. It has a lithium battery. Bought some clippers for my head this week, lithium battery. The kids' toys have got lithium batteries. My drone's got a lithium battery. Like, if you have a look at which way technology is going, I think lithium is going to be it. When I bought my car almost 5 years ago now, lithium wasn't talked about very much, so I went for AGM, Optima AGM battery, and that has been excellent. But I must admit, I'm really considering a lithium setup, and I'll go through a little bit about why and the pluses and minuses for both. So we'll get into that as well, and I'll go through the charging and the size that you need. So yeah, all right. So my Optima battery, I said it's lasted about 4 or so, nearly 5 years now, and I must admit it's not performing as well as it used to. 55 amp hour. It punches pretty well for its weight, but it does weigh about 20 front axle, and I'll get into where we should put our batteries in a little bit. But I've got to tell you, Al owns a Y62 as well. Just bought one. He's new to the club. Just thought I'd chuck that in there. So with the amount of cycles that you can get out of my battery, they say it's about 300 cycles out of a yellow top, and that means you can charge them up and then dissipate them down to sort of, I don't know, 50%, something like that. So that's somewhere between 11.5, 12 volts. Whereas a lithium battery, you can discharge down to 80% of its capacity. So you actually get more stretch out of it. Not to mention that a lithium weighs about half. So if I got the same 55 amp hour battery for lithium, it would only weigh 10 kilograms. And I'm all about weight for this car. When I measure my front axle, I'm sitting just between, you know, 1630 kilos, and the axle limit is 1650. So the more weight I can get out from under the bonnet, the happier I'll be. So you can kind of see where I'm going. There's a butt coming though. So lithium, as far as cycles, I said 300 cycles for the yellow top. It's probably more like 3,000, or you know, it's in the thousands, whatever it is for lithium. And talking to thousands, well, you're going to go and buy it, it's probably $1,000 as well. So I think my yellow top was, I don't know, $300-400, something like that. whereas a lithium is going to be, yeah, at least $1,000, but it's going to last you a lot longer. It's going to have more energy, it can dissipate further. There's some upsides to running lithium. Now, the size of battery, as I was saying, the 55 amp hour I've got, it's really set up for weekends. If I'm running my lights and fridge and I leave on Friday night, if I don't run my car, pretty much by Sunday morning, she's around that 11.5 volts. So a 55 amp hour is basically just enough for a weekend sort of thing. If you're going to want to be around for more than a weekend, you're going to have more battery capacity. I'm thinking like if you're going to be out for a week, you probably need like 120 amp hours, something like that, and you need to be a bit frugal. You know, don't get the kids to go and open the fridge and look in there for 5 minutes before they work out what they want. You will have to be a little bit frugal, and then you get solar involved too. So I run a 160 watt solar panel on the roof of my car, and that's enough to run my 50 litre fridge with my battery indefinitely. Summer, winter, you name it. All I have to do is park my car outside during the day and it'll charge up. Now, let's talk about a bit more. I was saying, actually, no, let me show you where I put it on my car. All right, so we've got the gimbal tonic on here. So this is my engine bay. I swear, one day I will clean it for you guys, because every time I show you my engine bay, it just looks filthy. Now, up here, if you can see it, usually this is where, so I've got a computer residing here, another one at the back, and my uni chip here. Usually the computers go there and there, and you can get a kit from Projector or Piranha, I'm trying to remember which one, and it relocates the computers, and you can fit your yellow 25 amp hour in there, location for it. What I think would actually be a better location, so to get the weight out of the engine bay, and if I was going to go the lithium, do AGM, but I would actually put it over the rear axle. So the rear axle has got a 2,050 kilogram load limit, heaps more than the front axle, and I've not done a smart thing. I've parked my car in the garage, so I can't open a door to show you, but if you've seen any of my other videos, I've got a single Titan drawer in the back, and it's 900mm long, and the idea with that will be to have one of those Dometic fridges on top of that just slide out, and then behind that have a travel buddy, and there still leaves about 250, 300mm for a battery, which I'm planning to put behind the second row seat and in front of the drawer. And that's where I reckon is a very good place for a battery to be, because it's pretty much right over the axle, and it's best for weight. Now there is a spot, if you go to the third row seats, there's a little fold up bit in these Y62s. You can put 5 20 amp hour like little batteries, whether they're the AGMs, or you can get lithiums to go in that space as well. I think OnTrack sells a kit to go in there, and that would be another place, but it is pushing the weight further back, so perfect would be over the axle. You don't want to, you've got to be considerate if you're having it on in the engine bay, but there is room to put it at the back as well. So there's all those different places, and of course I haven't even talked about those battery packs that you can get. So yeah, Home 12 volts, and I'm a Thumper one, all the manufacturers sell them, and that's basically, you go and plug it in your garage in the power point, it charges up for a week, then you're going to go camping, you put it in your car wherever you want, in the back or something, and you can run your fridge and everything off of that for the weekend. So that's another way to do things. Downside with that is the charger, when you plug it into your car when you're driving, is only a 10 amp charger, so it's not going to charge. If you deplete that battery, it's going to take a long time to charge back up. You have to think about doing it. You've got to secure it in your car somewhere, it's going to take up luggage space. You know, there's some downsides to do it, but if you don't want a battery all the time and it's just a few times a year, great way to pull it out of your car and then put it in when you need it, or you can chuck in your camper, you chuck in your mate's car, chuck it in your second car, all those sorts of things. So the upside is portability, downside is charging and rattling around in the back of your car. Just starting to read, plonk in the back, yeah, reading some of your comments there. All right, now, so we talked about the size, we're to the charging and the system that I'm using currently and what I'm thinking about. and just some of the ideas I've got. So, you know, very basic, talking about volts and current. Volts, you know, in a vehicle like this, it, you know, ranges between 11.5, 12 volts, and the alternator charges at 14.4 volts. Ideally, these batteries, depending on the chemistry and the charging components, should pre-charge a little bit more than 4.4. So it's something to think about, but that's what voltage is. Imagine its voltage is pressure. So if we got a hose, how much water can we push through that hose? And that's voltage. Current, on the other hand, is flow. That's the amount of water we can get to pass a point, you know, per minute or second or whatever it is. Think about a water pistol, very small hole, can shoot a long way, compared to the hose with a bigger volume. It's slower water coming out, and you think, okay, which one's better? The one with the pressure or the volume? Watts conversation. And if you times voltage by current, you get power, and that's what you're really measuring all your appliances in, and that's how much battery power you should have. Going on a tangent there. So the alternator charges at 14 volts, and it will burst out 140 amps. So that's the flow that you can get out of it. So if I've got like one of these yellow top batteries, they are fantastic at accepting current. So if it was discharged, I could turn my car on and charging at 14.4 volts, and it will pump like 60, 70, 80 amps into that battery and charge up really quick. That's great. And I've actually got a tong tester, measured it. I had my Caravan with a dead flat battery. This one went flat, something shorted out overnight, and I put the tong tester on the alternator and it was charging at 92 amps. So it's a really quick way to get that power back into your battery. Now, the other option, and I do that with a Red Arc smart solenoid, by the way, which I love. I'll show you that in a minute. The other way to do it was with a DC-DC charger. Now, typically, like the one in those little power battery bank things that you hold, they're about 10 amps. The ones that you get generally for like, you know, $300-400 are about 25 amps. So that means when your car's running, even though the alternator has the capacity to chuck out 90-100 amps, it's only ever going to charge that battery at 25 amps. Now you can pay more money and get bigger DC-DC chargers, but that is a limitation of a DC-DC charger. It's going to take a long time to charge that, charge it back up in comparison to just connecting the two batteries together. Now, you can only charge an AGM or lead acid battery that way. If you've got a lithium, you have to have a DC-DC charger. That's the only way it goes. But there's some other benefits to having a DC-DC. So that will look, most of them automatically detect the type of chemistry of your battery. And if your battery is supposed to charge at 14.8 or 14.9 volts, it will charge. At the same time, let's say your batteries are in the back and you've got a long cable to get to that and there's a voltage drop. So you might have 14.4 volts at the alternator, but there might only be 13.5 left by the time you get, you know, 5 meters to the back of your car. What the DC-DC charger will bump that back up to 14.8 or whatever your battery needs, and it will always charge your battery at the correct voltage. If there was a set and forget solution to dual batteries, it's a DC-DC charger, without a doubt. Because when I charge my yellow top, which likes to be charged at 14.8 to 15 volts, and the alternator's doing it, the best I can get is 14.4. So I will never charge my battery more than 95%, my yellow top. And it's only 55 amp hours to start with, so it's not a big battery. So I need another solution. And my solution is the solar panel on the roof. Now, excuse me, just need a drink. And the solar panel on the roof goes to my solar controller, which is just here. Actually got this from Home at 12 volt many years ago. And that I can set that to charge at whatever voltage I like. So I've got it set to charge at 14.9 volts off my solar panel. And the important thing though, when you're going to do something like that, if you're running the Nissan factory battery, the Nissan factory battery it is tolerant of higher voltage, but really it's probably 14.9 is a bit high for it. So when I replaced my Nissan battery, I replaced it with a battery that charges at the same rate as my yellow top battery. So if you're going to connect two batteries together, they have to have the same charging characteristics. That's my point to that. Now, I'm going to take you into the car, and I can see there's messages coming up, and thanks, Albie. Al, I can see that you're answering them. Let's hope my lighting is adequate here. All right, so the other benefit, sorry, camera, I'm over here, please. All right, so the other benefit now, this is a bit awkward, isn't it? How can I do this? What I want to show you is all my switches in a minute. When you have a smart solenoid, you've got the benefit of being able to connect the two batteries together. So there's a little blue wire that comes off the smart solenoid, and you can run that to a switch, which I've got on the dash down here, and I can connect those two batteries permanently if I choose. Well, why would I do that? If I was winching. So you always connect your winch to the start battery, but if I want a bit of extra juice out of it, because they pull like 400 amps, and maybe I just don't want to stress my starting battery as much, permanently link the two batteries together, and that gives me 55 amp hours from the yellow top and another 95 from my starting battery. You can't do that with a DC-DC charger or a lithium, which is a DC-DC charger, and you couldn't connect them anyway. So you could only do that when you've got a smart solenoid and the same chemistry batteries. Secondly, like my little 55 amp hour isn't that much. So when that charges up to past 12.5 volts, it connects the two together and it continues to charge my starting battery. And if I'm out camping, my solar panel will charge both of them together. And as they dissipate, they will stay connected until it gets to 12.5 volts, and then it will isolate. So I've always got enough power, but it means I got a bit more than 55 amp hours because I used, you know, the other, I don't know how many amp hour voltage from my starting battery. You can't do that with a DC-DC charger as well. So I've got some little switches. Let's see how good I am at using this gimbal. Down here, if I start my car now, shut the door, make sure the lights stay on. One more time. Down here I've got a couple of switches. You'll just have to trust me because you probably can't see it. The one, I don't need aircon, the one on the left hand side, well, first of all, if you haven't got one already, get yourself one of these little volt gauges. They're fantastic. You need to see what your voltage is doing. Either that or get yourself one of these head-up displays which will display my voltage up here of the starting battery. But once you know what's going on, and I've wired this directly to my dual battery, my second battery, and then if I move it to the other cigarette lighter, then it's starting, I'm measuring my starting battery. Anyway, going off on a tangent. As soon as I start the car, you'll see in a moment a little blue light flick on here. That means the smart solenoid has linked the two batteries together, and now it's charging away. If I was started winch now and it dropped below 12.5 volts, it would isolate, but I can press that and that's going to permanently put them on, or that's a jump starting feature as well in case my main battery goes flat, which happens all the time with Y62s. However, for some reason, if I wanted to isolate them, like as soon as I start the car, like I'm on 13.8 volts at the moment with the alternator. So if I was charging at 15 volts from my solar panel into the second battery, my engine just sucked up all of those spare volts. So what I can do with this right hand switch, and this is switching the earth wire of the smart solenoid, I can turn that off, and that now turns my smart solenoid off. So now if I'm charging from my battery at the top, turn that off too. There we go, now it's off. You've got to turn both of them off. Now I'm getting the maximum out of this. So, all right, to summarize, this is a, come on, gimbal. This is a convoluted way to run a dual battery setup. If you didn't want to think about it, just go buy a DC-DC charger and get the highest amperage one that you can afford. But if you like mucking around with this stuff and looking at voltage and playing with your car and really understanding it, there's nothing wrong with doing a smart solenoid and an AGM battery. So I hope that's given you a few things to think about when selecting your dual battery for your car, where it's going to go. Any questions I've missed out on, I'm going to come back and have a look in a minute, and I'll go and answer them in a moment. So trying to think I've forgotten any. Oh, my last thing I've been thinking of, the best of both worlds. I don't know if this will work, but I'm keen to test it. And that's to have my smart solenoid and a DC-DC charger. So it'll charge without me thinking about it all the time. And then for those few instances that I want to control what's going on, I'll have like a separate charging circuit from the alternator run through my smart solenoid, and I can control it. Yeah, so that's just an idea I'm playing around with before I do lithium. Anyway, thank you for watching. This Thursday, there's another video coming out. It's scheduled for, what's it going to be on? I'm trying to remember. It's about caravans. You might not be excited about it, but it's about diesel heaters again. So check that out on Thursday. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Yeah.